There's some words you kind of know, but maybe don't fully grasp. Like you see them, but pinning down the exact meaning is tricky.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into one of those, repudiate.
Yes, a strong one.
Exactly. What's it really mean? Where's it from? How do we use it? That's what we're digging into.
And we've got some interesting stuff to look at, etymology, definitions, of course, but also how it pops up in real sentences and maybe even how it, relates to things like setting boundaries.
Okay, good. So the goal is to get a solid handle on this, well, powerful word.
Precisely. A concise but thorough look.
All right, let's jump right in, the basics first. If someone repudiates something, what's the core idea?
Well, at its heart, it's about rejection.
Yeah.
But it's a really strong form of rejection.
Stronger than just saying no.
Oh, yeah. Much stronger. Think. Refuse to accept, disown, deny something's true, refuse to acknowledge it, or even refuse to... That's a debt. It's a pretty forceful dismissal.
Okay, forceful dismissal. Got it. And I think I saw something about an early link to divorce.
You did. That's actually a key part of its history. When it first entered English, maybe around the 1540s, its main meaning was about divorce.
Right.
Specifically to cast off by divorce, often referring to a husband divorcing a wife.
Wow. So that very personal, very final act of rejection is sort of baked into the word's origins.
Exactly. It seems to have colored its meaning ever since. It carries that weight,
Definitely feels weighty. Now, you also mentioned refusing to pay. Is there a legal side to this too? Like repudiating a contract?
Yes, absolutely. In legal terms, repudiation is quite specific. It means one party makes it clear, really clear, that they won't fulfill their obligations under a contract.
So they're saying ahead of time, I'm not doing this.
Right. And what's interesting is that this act itself, this repudiation, can be treated as what's called an anticipatory breach.
Anticipatory breach,
Meaning the other party might be able to sue right away, even before the date the performance was actually due, because the intention not to perform has been made so clear.
Okay, so it's not just talk. It can trigger immediate legal consequences. That's significant.
Very significant in contract law, yes.
Let's rewind a bit then. You mentioned its English entry in the 1540s. Where did it come from before that, the history?
It comes straight from Latin. The verb was repudiare.
Repudiare, okay.
And its meanings in Latin, pretty much the same echoes. To cast off, put away, divorce, reject, scorn, disdain.
So that core idea of strong rejection, even scorn, has been there for ages.
It really has. Centuries.
Can we break down that Latin word, repudiare? What are its parts?
Sure. It seems to combine re, meaning back or away.
Like in reject or return.
Exactly. And the second part is pudium. Now, pudium is a bit more mysterious, which is always fun.
Oh, what are the theories?
Well, one idea connects it to pudere, a Latin verb meaning to cause shame to.
Cause shame? Okay, that fits the negative feeling.
It does. Another theory, maybe a bit more visual, links it to pes, or ped, the root for foot.
Foot, as in it's kicking.
That's the suggestion. Like you're literally kicking something away in rejection.
Kicking away or causing shame. Either way, it really emphasizes that forceful, get away from me aspect of repudiate.
It certainly does. And there was a related Latin noun, too. Repudium.
Let me guess it meant rejection.
Pretty much. Repudium meant divorce or rejection. It just reinforces that central theme. You can really see the direct line from these Latin roots to the English word.
Okay, so we have this Latin word repudiare, meaning forceful rejection, often linked to divorce. It comes into English in the mid-1500s with that divorce meaning. How did it evolve? How did we get to repudiating, say, policies or debts?
Well, the general sense of reject seems to have been there alongside the divorce meaning pretty early on. But then, yeah, it expanded over time.
How so?
By the late 1600s, people started using it to mean disown, specifically referring to people...
Like disowning a family member.
That kind of context, yes.
That.
Then fast forward to the early 1800s, and it broadens again. To rejecting opinions or someone's conduct, often with a sense of, condemnation. And around 1837, specifically using it for refusing to acknowledge or pay debts.
So it kept that core strength, but just found new targets, people, ideas, debts.
That's a good way to put it. And interestingly, the adjective form, repudiated, meaning rejected or condemned, actually shows up in English even earlier, like the mid-15th century.
Huh. So the idea of something being repudiated was around even before the verb became common.
Seems like it. The concept was there.
Okay, so that covers the history and the meaning. Definition, check. Etymology, check. Now, how does this actually play out today? How do people use repudiate in, normal conversation or writing?
Right. Let's look at some modern usage. This is where you see its power in action.
We saw examples involving rejecting claims or allegations. Can you give us a feel for that?
Sure. Like, he published an article that repudiates the study's claims.
Okay, so he's not just disagreeing. He's actively trying to disprove it, tear it down.
Exactly. Or she says she has evidence which repudiates the allegations, meaning her evidence will supposedly show the accusations are completely false. It's a strong, definitive denial.
It really emphasizes that element of proving something wrong or invalid.
Yeah.
What about rejecting policies or actions publicly?
Oh, that's a very common use.
Yeah.
Think about he has publicly repudiated the government's policies.
Okay, so it's open, not hidden. He wants people to know he rejects them.
Precisely. Or an official like the dean repudiated the student's remarks. It implies a formal, authoritative rejection.
Right, using their position to condemn it.
And we saw examples with countries, too, like Italy and Poland publicly repudiating some deal. It's a strong diplomatic stance.
It's like drawing a very clear line, often for everyone to see. Politics seems like a natural home for this word, then. Voters repudiating someone.
Absolutely. You might hear something like, not until the voters repudiate him first. The idea being that a strong electoral rejection needs to happen. Or looking back, like in 2018, young voters turned out to repudiate then-President Trump, using the vote as that tool of rejection.
Okay, and it can even apply to legacies, right? Like repudiating what someone stood for.
Yes. The example about Ian Kama's actions potentially repudiating his father's legacy shows that. Rejecting the past or being seen as rejecting it.
So it works for current things and past things.
Yeah.
What about groups or organizations?
Definitely. A sentence like, the new board voted to repudiate those deals. That's a formal rejection of past agreements, often declaring them invalid.
Right, voiding them.
Or companies like the car makers repudiating the work of some group, basically saying, we reject this, we distance ourselves from it.
Makes sense.
And even institutions changing over time, like the Mormon Church eventually repudiating past teachings on race. It marks a significant formal shift.
These examples really drive home that it's usually a serious, often formal, and very strong form of rejection.
It really is. It's not a casual word.
And maybe a quick side note here. Sometimes people mistakenly say repudiate.
Ah, yes. That was a famous blend, wasn't it? Coined accidentally.
Right. But the established correct word for this meaning we've been discussing is definitely repudiate.
Absolutely. Repudiate is the one with the history and the clear, recognized meaning of strong rejection. Repudiate isn't standard.
Good clarification. So essentially, repudiate is the word you reach for when you need to express a really forceful rejection, denial, or disowning of something.
That sums it up well. It has that historical weight and continues to be used for significant acts of rejection.
Okay, I feel like I have a much better grip on repudiate now. Definition, history, usage. It's clear.
It's a word that definitely packs a punch.
It does. Now, we briefly mentioned boundaries earlier. Is there like a connection there? Feels indirect.
It is indirect, yeah, but you could maybe see a link. When we set boundaries, we're essentially defining what we accept and what we, reject or repudiate. Right?
Okay, I see that. Defining what's not acceptable.
Yeah. And maybe, sometimes, difficulty setting boundaries comes from a reluctance to clearly repudiate what someone else expects or demands,
That makes sense. Being unwilling to draw that strong line.
Exactly. Asserting boundaries is about clearly saying what's in and what's out for you. In a way, it's proactively repudiating intrusions or behaviors you won't accept.
Interesting angle. A less formal, more personal kind of repudiation, maybe.
Perhaps. It's more about the underlying concept of rejection than the word itself in that context, but there's a conceptual overlap.
Okay, so wrapping this up then. Key takeaway. Repudiate means strong rejection. Often public, often formal.
Right. With roots in divorce, but now used much more broadly, legally, politically, personally, rejecting ideas, actions, debts.
A versatile but consistently strong word.
Definitely.
Well, this has been really illuminating. Thinking about the power of repudiate. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? When is clearly defining what you reject just as crucial as defining what you accept in life?
That's a great thought to leave things on. Knowing what you stand against can be incredibly defining.
So maybe keep an ear out for repudiate now. See where it pops up. Notice the weight it carries.
Good idea. Thanks for digging into this one with me.
Always interesting. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.